Hello, everyone. I am Faisal Qayyum, and welcome to another podcast. Um, Recently, I've come across several students when they start writing technical reports. A major question comes related to plagiarism and use of AI, and many students are confused about this topic. To be honest, not just students, us as teachers, as evaluators, are also confused about it. Primarily because it is a fairly new topic and there are not many rules or regulations around it. And because everyone is confused, we usually do not openly talk about it. And and that is why everything just lingers in the gray area. Um, and that is not really good for the students and their perspective on how they should proceed with their work and technical work and what is allowed and what is not allowed, and especially when their lives are hanging in the air. And this is something that they will have to deal with for the rest of their lives from this moment onwards. So, what I believe is that we should openly talk about it, and that is why I am recording this podcast to have a discussion about what is plagiarism, what is the use of AI, how much is it allowed, how much is it not allowed, to the best of my knowledge. And of course, things will change in the future. Probably there will be more rules, more regulations, more laws. But today, as of September 2024, I'm recording this session to give you an idea about what our understanding about this topic is. So let's start by first understanding what is plagiarism, because I think it is important to discuss and clearly lay the bottom line with this understanding, and then it will be much easier to understand the rest of the things, and in the future it will also help you with evaluating whatever comes next. Now, so let's start by understanding what is plagiarism. And my understanding of plagiarism is that stealing someone else's intellectual property and showing it as yours is called plagiarism. Okay. For example, stealing someone else's data, not doing your own tests or experiments, just picking up data from someone else's work, which is either published or not published, which is either publicly available or not publicly available, and then putting it in your text or information and then showing it as yours is plagiarism. Copying someone else's experimental design or methodology and showing it at yours. For example, someone else spent years in developing a new experimental methodology, or someone worked hard in developing a new method to synthesize something or create something or test something new, and then you just come along, you just read their work or talk to them and know about their idea, you just quickly show and use it, and then claim that it is your own, right, without appropriately giving them the credit. This is also plagiarism. Copying text and figures. So this is usually what the students will be more concerned about. So using text or figures from someone else, either from a published work or again unpublished work, from someone's presentation, from someone's research paper, from someone's book, and then just copying it, pasting it in your document, and showing it as yours. So that because if you will not mention that it was taken from someone else's work, it will automatically seem like now that means it is your work. Showing it as your work, it is called plagiarism. These are some examples of plagiarism. Now there is also something slightly similar in terms of crimes. So plagiarism is a huge crime, right? It is a crime. It is a criminal offense which has serious problems or challenges in the future, right? And with this serious offense, you also have, for example, data tampering, which is also a serious offense, which means you manipulate your data to show something or show some trends which are actually not there or present, or you did not actually detect them, right? And these are major crimes in academia, and someone can have very serious consequences if they do this, right? The major consequences can be, for example, depends on what was the how serious of the plagiarism you did. So you did really steal someone's data, or you did really steal someone's intellectual property and show it as yours, and then you took and then it helped you to grow professionally, or get a degree, or pass a subject, or it was just um, a one-time fluke, a miscommunication, or it was not written properly. So depending on how serious of an offense that was, it can have different consequences. But it can be something serious, especially when you are at higher ranks in your in the future. When you have professionally grown, someone can look back at what you did in your work in the past, and this can be very messy. And you can go online, see all the stories of all the rectors and scientists and people who have been who were accused of such things, and then what happens to them, and things like this. But it is a serious offense, right? And therefore it should be avoided. So you have to understand what plagiarism is, so you do not intentionally or unintentionally do that, right? So the question comes, how can we avoid that? A very simple answer is just give credit to the main person whose work that you are using, right? In technical reports, how we do that is we cite the person or the work. Now there are standard ways of citing research papers, books, online articles, videos, web content, news articles, or whatever. No? So there is standard format or way of citing someone else's work and show that it is someone else's intellectual property that you have used, and yeah, just that is how we can avoid plagiarism, right? Now the major question usually comes is, who should we cite? So for example, you read a research paper, and this person has cited someone else, and that person has cited someone else, and then that is basically the person who actually did this work in, let's say, 1920s or whatever. The question is, who should we cite? Should we cite the person whose research paper we read very recently, or we should cite the person who actually did this work, right? So again, we will go back to the definition of plagiarism, right? So you give credit to the person whose actual intellectual property that was. So you have to find and cite the person whose actual idea this thing was that you are using or mentioning or have written or referred to, right? By using an appropriate style. So give credit to the main person. Now it has several advantages. Now this shows that you know and acknowledge what others have done, right? It shows that you know and acknowledge what others have done, and it alleviates your liability and responsibility from whatever they did, right? So if they showed that having this medicine for 3 days a week will completely cure your disease, right? You can just take their word, put it in your text, cite them that they have actually done this, and you can build your story on that without checking or proofreading if that was correct or not, right? And if someone asks you in the future that why did you write this, you can just say, it is not my work, it is their work, so please see this, right? And that is how a scientific method or scientific procedure works. So we stand on the shoulder of giants. Other people in the past have done amazing work. They have published through peer review process, We believe in this, and that is why we can just directly use that data and we can build on that, right? So just speaking in very simple plain terms generally, so that is the advantage of not plagiarizing. Okay. Okay, so once you understand this, so once you understand what is plagiarism, what is the moral ground of what plagiarism looks like, and how you can avoid that, then comes the more technical definition, which the students are more interested in. So how will I know that how much plagiarism is there, right? So this definition that we have talked about on top is more on the moral ground, and is very different from how plagiarism detection in your work works, right? You might have I come across this question multiple times, and you might have also asked this question of how much plagiarism is allowed. Right? So if I break it down into very simple words, you basically, someone is asking how much stealing of someone else's work is allowed, right? It doesn't work like that. So you might be able to answer this question yourself now. So how much plagiarism is allowed? Basically, no plagiarism is allowed. So 0% plagiarism is allowed based on this moral definition that we have talked about, right? Now, the thing is that it is very difficult to detect this plagiarism just based on this moral high ground. So when we talk about different tools, they have different algorithms and different methods to detect plagiarism, and there can be false plagiarism detections. Okay, and this false plagiarism detection is usually 20% allowed in a report. Now, this will also depend on specific institute, specific supervisor, specific university. Laws and regulations change. You have to check for your own. But this false plagiarism detection is usually allowed to a certain limit, right? Which means, so let me break it down to you, which means that you will say, okay, I heard this podcast there. Faisal Qayyum said that if you have copied the data or figure from someone else and you have given them credit by citing, I have taken this data from there, then it is not plagiarism. I am clearly showing that it was not my work. I am clearly showing, I am giving credit to the main person. This is not plagiarism, right? So morally, no, but according to the software or according to the tool, it will be plagiarism. Right? Because what it does is, what usually all the plagiarism tools do is they have a huge database they are connected to, and they look at your document word by word, and they see when a bunch of words appears somewhere else online in the document, they highlight that they highlight in your document that it was already published somewhere, therefore it is copied and it is plagiarism. Okay, but they are not able to see that you have cited them at the end of the sentence, and therefore they should not mark this sentence as plagiarized, but they still do that anyways. So this kind of false detection or false plagiarism is 20% allowed, and by that you can automatically deduce that even when you are copying someone else's work in your report, you have to rephrase it or rewrite it so that it is not exactly word by word copied from their document into yours, but it is rephrased. So you have to give credit to them as well as rephrase it, so the plagiarism detectors or tools are not able to say that this is directly copied from there. For figures and for tables, usually if you're using that from someone else's work, you have to take permission of the author, and most of the times of the publisher. If it is published, for example, nowadays most of the publishers are going open access, so if it is published with a Creative Commons license, then you can just use it by mentioning that it was available freely, so I have used it, and I'm depending on which kind of license was there, it will not have any issue. Okay, so now you understand that what kind of plagiarism is allowed, and how plagiarism softwares or tools work, and how you can avoid them or go around them. Okay. This shows that that when we talk about allowed plagiarism, what that means. And I just want to rephrase that this kind of false plagiarism, which a plagiarism software will detect as a plagiarism, but is actually not plagiarism, is usually allowed to a certain extent or a certain limit, because we know that you are not doing it intentionally. It is just that we have no other way of knowing if you are. We have no other tools or way of knowing the moral high ground, and therefore these tools work on certain algorithms, and they have a problem internally, and therefore we allow you to go beyond a certain limit of common words that we can find online, right? And to be frank, of course, if I am writing steel is being used across the world to produce cars, it is a very simple common sentence. I just thought about it right now, but this is a sentence which would have appeared multiple times in the past, and this kind of text, although I have not directly read from someone, and I'm not really copying and pasting from someone else, is a very simple and common sentence that is being used in the field that I work in by multiple authors, and therefore the plagiarism tool will say it is copied from multiple people, but actually it isn't, because it is just a very basic sentence, and that is why it is shown as plagiarism. Okay, so again, mentioning these kind of false detections are usually allowed, and they do not do any harm. So this is completely fine and okay, as long as you're not really stealing someone else's idea. So as long as you're adhering to the moral high ground of not really stealing someone's intellectual property, and there's no intentional stealing involved. Now, I hope you understand. Now I hope you understand plagiarism properly. And now it will be much easier to talk about AI in academic writing. Okay, so when we talk about AI in academic writing, generally we are referring to generative AI, and you have to understand what generative AI basically is. Okay, so generative AI is a tool that can predict most probable text that will follow the already written text or the prompt that you have given in, based on extremely large learning that it went through in the past. Okay, so it is not really magic. It basically knows what is the probability of a certain word to come after a certain amount of text based on how many times it has appeared in the text. It has appeared in different contexts in the past. That's what basically generative AI is. And from this predictive capability, the problem arises that it does not have a moral right or wrong. It does not have a moral true or false, right? So it is just a probability-based predictor of which word will come next, and it will just put that word in front of text, and it will just go on, continue to do that, and it will seem like it is generating text which seems reasonable, which is readable, which is meaningful, which conveys a certain meaning or a message, right? But what it actually doing is there was a huge data set that was fed to it, and it knows what text looks like, and what are the probabilities of different words to come one after another, and that is primarily what it is doing with your text. So once you understand this concept or idea, then you will understand different AI models. So different AI, depending on which training data it was fed, different AI models have been trained and tuned differently and built differently for specific tasks. Okay, and they do those tasks better than the other. So they can be used to maybe do multiple tasks, but a certain tool that is trained with certain data set and has been tuned to give certain outputs, or has been structured in a way to behave in a certain way, will always be a better tool to do that job than something else. Okay, so there are certain examples of AIs that I want to talk about before we go deeper into what are the implications. For example, there is a very known AI driven model that DeepL has been using for quite some time. So that is basically to translate text in different languages. Okay, then there are tools like Research Rabbit and Litmaps, which are database driven models, which basically give you connection between what research papers you are interested in, or what is in your library, and what you might be interested in, or what is not in your library but can be of your interest, and you can connect that. And then how do these articles connect based on a very sophisticated database in the background, and the approach of making connections between these texts and data sets. So these are also some tools. Then there are certain tools that can scan the database and can do kind of scientific reasoning, right? So there is typeset.io, elicit.org, and Jenny.ai, which are tools that, based on your questions or your input or your instructions, have been specifically tuned and targeted to generate text based on scientifically published data, right? So typeset.io, elicit, and Jenny.ai. These tools are very nice. I really love Typeset because you can use it to read articles. You can use it to understand equations and different models, and what the whole research paper is about, and what is in the figures, and you can use it to really understand things. And then Elicit to maybe understand concepts on where do people stand, and what do they think, and what is the consensus in the literature, and things like this, right? And then there is OG, ChatGPT, right? And then now it is now with 4.0 there are also different GPTs available. So you can, if you're in the pro version, you can check which GPTs are available in their library. You can download them, you can use them. So again, they have been trained on specific data sets. They have been tuned in a certain direction, so you can use them to do certain tasks related to academics and non-academics, but we are talking in context of academics, right? So all these tools basically help you with different how do I say this, different aspects of research. So some tools will help you with finding out the literature. Some tools will help you understanding the literature. Some tools will help you synthesize information out of the key literature points that you have written. And some tools will just help you brainstorm, understand the concepts, do basic learning, ask and make outlines, and so on and so forth. But there is no one universal tool available that will do everything in once, right? These tools, depending on which one you use, now there are many tools available to do the same job. Many are free, some have a paywall, some are open access libraries, some are have a very nice user interface, and things like this. So depending on what you want to work on, and what is your working method, what do you actually expect, you can use these tools or many other similar tools to do a certain job. But the basic idea is they're there to make your work easier, but you have to remember that these are generative AI based tools, right? So they work with the function or the idea that we discussed earlier, that there is a huge data set fed in the background. Based on what they know, they are able to predict what will come next after your prompt or the text that they have output before, and that is what they work on. So they do not have a moral right or wrong, they do not have a moral true or false. They are just working on this idea of probability, that this word will come next after the previous ones. So when you're using them, the limitation of these tools is that they depend on the training data. They depend on they depend on the training data, and they do not have right or wrong or true or false. So if you understand these limitations, you can use you can understand to what extent you can use these tools. So you can use them to brainstorm, to do your work easier, make it more reliable. But always remember 3 things. You always have to check the output critically, right? Because they do not have a moral understanding of right or wrong, true or false. So you have to check it and make sure that it is there. It is and once you use the text that they have exported, these are not people, right? These are not companies. These are just models or tools, and it is your responsibility for any information that you take from these tools and you present anywhere. You cannot blame, I'm writing it here because ChatGPT gave this output. So ChatGPT gave this output because it is just a model, right? And it will do something, but because it does not have a moral understanding of anything, it cannot be held accountable for whatever output it gives. So you are responsible for if you copy or paste something from there, right? And also you have to specifically mention in what capacity you use these tools whenever you're submitting your reports, whenever you're giving your presentations. That is important because it will help other people understand that to what extent should they rely on this information, or to what extent should they scrutinize the information or the text that you're sharing with them. If it is generative AI based text and you have not mentioned it anywhere, it can have problems or challenges or confusions, because you're showing that this is your intellectual property where it actually isn't. So it is not something you created or generated. And then they can be used at so many levels, and they can be used at so many levels, and there is so much technology that is evolving every day based on these tools, that everything is new, and therefore we do not have any AI detectors. So you will hear about AI detection here or there, but primarily there is no AI detection. There can't be any AI detection. And also there are no laws which explicitly mention that using AI or AI generated text is plagiarism, right? But you remember that AI tools are just models that predict which word will come next based on a lot of data that they were fed in the past. So this data was actually intellectual property of someone. It was produced by someone. And now these models are using this data to basically predict which word will come next, and that is how they work. But in the context of technical writing, AI data is not considered plagiarism yet, although it was trained on the data from people in the past. um, but because it mixes it and it is hard to detect and things, so yeah, it is tricky. And therefore it is your responsibility to explicitly mention that this is the text, or this is the part, or this is the work that you did using AI, so people will know that, okay, this is what was produced by AI, and how to look at it, and how to judge it, and how to check it. But again, it is your responsibility to check if it is correct, and it is your responsibility again to give credit to the right person. Now, because there is no transparency of there is no clear transparency of the text, transparency of the text generated or shown to you was intellectual property of someone else. By generative AI tools, they just mix everything in the black box and then they give output of something. It is difficult to give credit to someone, and therefore, what I recommend is use AI tools to do brainstorming, to write down points, to set your boundaries, or to check your work, then actually write, and you will be future proof. So in the future, no one will be able to say, yeah, so it is not your own work. Now we can see that it was generated by AI, and AI took someone else's work, and then you just copied it and pasted it without giving credit to them, and now you are accused of something, right? So don't do that. Use it to do brainstorming, use it to learn, use it to check your work. Once you do that, do your own thinking, write your own words, use AI to correct them, to modify them, to improve your text. And whatever you are doing, clearly mention that I used AI in this region or in this part of my document to do specifically this and that task. Right? And I think this is a responsible way of using AI in the future. I think it is a very cool technology. It will stay part of our lives for quite some time. And it can be immensely useful and immensely bad for creativity and scientific use, depending on how we are using it. So yeah, this is the state of the information that I have, and that is what I wanted to share with you. So yeah, so you are not confused, and you can use it, and you can be more informed about the responsible use of AI, and what plagiarism is, and how to avoid it, and then yeah, all these topics. No? I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. I hope I was able to at least clear some of the clouds or the smoke around these topics. And yeah, so thank you so much, and see you in the next one. Bye.